the discussion of whether we teach evolution is not a theological or religious discussion. There is not a polarity here, and damn it, these people behind me prove that. But it denigrated anyway. Ramsey chose a moderator on his own because he thought things were unfairly stacked against him. So he chose a representative, another minister from another ministry, a young earth creationist, as crazy as you can get, sort of zealot to undermine the whole proceedings, really. What had happened was I presented a opening argument wherein I challenged all the points raised on strengthsandweaknesses.org for the weaknesses that he wanted to teach. One of them being there's no transitional species. I have a list of hundreds. I think we should teach that there are hundreds of transitional species since that's what we have. And he's arguing, no, we can't let people think that. I wanted to open the debate with a series of definitions, just to make sure we're clear on what we're talking about, because when I say evolution, and I'm talking about population genetics, he's thinking a handful of molecules turn into a man. And he's thinking that. And I want to clarify, so I put down all my definitions, that this is what abiogenesis is and how it contrasts with spontaneous generation, just so that we're clear, and how these both contrast with biological evolution, how evolution contrasts with cosmology and other fields of science, just to make sure that this is what we're talking about. These are our definitions. He refused to allow definitions. He wouldn't just agree on definitions. He wouldn't allow them to be posted. His exact words were, I hope I can remember them precisely, let's leave the words undefined and let the audience decide what they think these words should mean. Can you be any more disingenuous than that? So as the debate began, this was a written debate. It was out on a blog, which unfortunately does not exist. I'd love to refer you to the actual words that were being carried here, but the website went down. And I've lost all record of the portion of documentation that I once had for these. But his bulldog, his alternate minister, undermined the proceedings immediately by attacking all of my moderators for not being true Christians. And what I found out was going on behind the scenes was that they were evangelizing the scientists. The scientists largely weren't even involved in the proceedings because it became such a fiasco immediately that it was beneath anyone's serious consideration. One guy, the geologist who used to be for the Young Earth magazine, actually undermined things in his own way by sending private messages to my opponent when it became evident that I was going to win the debate, and we can't allow an atheist to win the debate. So it doesn't matter what the facts are, even to him. And that's when I realized how bad things were. And the whole thing collapsed immediately when it became evident that he was absolutely wrong about absolutely everything that he had presented, and that there was no chance that he could defend his position at all. He then announced that he no longer had time to contribute to such a debate. It was by that point that I had become more intimately familiar with the other people on the board. And this guy did me a great favor when he challenged me in a limit of 1,500 words per post to explain my situation, my position, in only 1,500 words, and he rattles off a series of questions, none of which I could adequately answer in the limits already imposed. And so I decided to create a website answering those questions, and thought better about it later, inspired by somebody else, to produce a YouTube series answering those questions. And I'm happy to say that I now have 45,000 subscribers to my YouTube channel with those answering those questions. Thank you. Because it was obvious that I was never going to reach anyone on the Board of Education. My son announced to me that one of his science teachers believed that cockroaches were vertebrates. Another science teacher told him on the day that I released the video explaining what a science theory is, my son's science teacher coincidentally chose that day to tell the class that evolution was just a theory, not a fact. And then he went on to say that there's never been a beneficial mutation. My son, in one of the moments that I'm proud of him for, opened the textbook and said, "But teacher, beneficial mutations are listed in the required curricula right here in the textbook." And he was reprimanded by the teacher for that. It's in the textbook. My son is telling the teacher to read his own textbook. Thank you, Jamye, for pointing out that if we have crappy teachers who don't know what the hell they're talking about, they shouldn't be teaching our kids.
And this is not the first time I've heard something like this, and it won't be the last. And that's one of my biggest concerns is that this, like I heard so many like, oh really, like cockroach is a vertebrate, and that's not even near the worst that I've heard that a science teacher has taught their kids.
I would like to add that in one of my more recent videos attacking the Board of Education, 2 members of the Board of Education contributed in telephone interviews, encouraging me to continue and putting in background information and giving me references to things that I just needed to see on video that they had in their archives. So Helen Berlanga and Mavis Knight are definitely among the good guys on the board. And I just wanted to give a little shout out because they were very helpful in that. And
Thank you.
I think I'm done.
Thank you.
Can I take 30 seconds to say something about what he just discussed, real quick? Okay. I did want to mention, because he did talk about the people on the Board of Education that are helping us and that are fighting against this as much as they can, that the strengths and weaknesses TEAC, I want to read it for you. It says the old Biology 3A TEAC says, analyze, review, and critique scientific explanations, including hypotheses and theories, as to their strengths and weaknesses using scientific evidence and information. The new TEAC, which was approved last year, says that the student uses critical thinking, scientific reasoning, and problem solving to make informed decisions inside and outside of the classroom. The student is expected to, in all fields of science, analyze, evaluate, and critique scientific explanations by using empirical evidence, logical reasoning, experimental and observational testing, including examining all sides of scientific evidence of those scientific explanations, as to encourage the critical thinking in the student. And that is a victory, I think, right there. And it's a compromise that they came up with, but that's the wording that our board has approved. And I think that's a win, and we need to celebrate those wins when we get them, because we got rid of the strengths and weaknesses and we're moving on. So we need to approve, and let them know, hey, that's a good educational standard right there. At least I think so.
Okay, even though Richard Haynes is a resident of Georgia and not directly affected by education in Texas, indirectly, as was pointed out earlier, everybody's going to be affected by education in Texas unless the textbook industry finds an electronic way around this book buy thing. So we're interested in the opinions of Richard Haynes.
Thank you. For now on, I want to be called Brother Ra, because I really need to be cool. I've been in desperate need of trying to be cool since I've become an atheist, and everybody makes fun of me. We should go on the road together and kind of be like, the ebony and ivory of, atheism, and we can. I feel like Richie Cunningham sitting next to Aleister Crowley or something like that right now. That's a compliment, by the way. It was meant to be. So maybe it'll run off.